I don't want a relationship with a teapot. I just think the design's pretty.
Yeah. I'm asexual. I don't experience sexual attraction, but I do still like people. I do still want to be in relationships with people.
I want to snort those muscles.
Yeah.
Why do I say that?
Snort those muscles.
I don't know. That was the first thing that came to mind, okay? Welcome to the Trans Boss podcast, home of the Trans Boss movement, the place where empowered trans people come to discover what it takes to become the best versions of themselves. I am your host, Jasmine Vine, a Transfem trans empowerment specialist and the CEO of Javine, and I'm here to guide you on this empowering journey. In each episode, we'll dive deep into topics that matter to us trans people, like navigating through societal challenges, as well as building resilience and embracing an empowering mindset. We'll explore it all. We'll also bring on some incredible guests who are making a positive impact in the trans community. The Trans Boss podcast is your go-to resource for empowerment, hope, wisdom, and epic stories from empowered trans bosses across the globe. It's time to kick life's ass and create an empowered, authentic you. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Trans Boss podcast. So today we are joined by our guest, Winter. Winter is going to be talking to us all about the split attraction model. So what is it? Why is it important to understand? We're going to dive into some examples and everything all around it. So Winter is a core part of Javine. She is our resident gender and attraction and tech expert. She's multifaceted. She's studying to become a counsellor. She is a very deep thinker, very much an idealist. And my girlfriend, and the other half of our couch conversations. So this isn't exactly a couch conversation today. And actually, it's not a couch conversation. It's not a conversation on the couch, because we're actually in the office and we do have some notes for this one. So to start off, I have a few rapid answer questions for you. How do you identify and what are your pronouns?
So, non-binary, asexual, lesbian, she, they, they, and it.
Beautiful. And what is something you believe in?
I would say that I believe in people. I think humanity at its core is a communal species. And I think that's our kind of natural go-to is community.
Okay. What do you want to see more of in the world?
Kindness and understanding.
Me too. That's all of us on this podcast, isn't it? Okay. So why do you believe it's important to understand the split attraction model?
I think it's important to understand it because not everyone fits into this kind of concept of a singular orientation of their entire identity, of their attraction being gay or bisexual or any of these common labels that we use. Also because people feel attraction in different ways, differently to how other people feel attraction and differently based on who they're feeling attraction to. And I think learning about the split attraction model can really help people understand how they feel attraction themselves, and as part of that, how they connect to others.
Okay. I'm sure we'll get into some examples around that. But, okay. So what sort of challenges might come up? Like, why would someone want to look into the split attraction model?
I think a lot of the time people can feel like there's something wrong with them if they're not potentially feeling things the way they view other people as feeling things around them. And there can be a lot of confusion around what your identity is, especially if you've got like some conflicting or some things that feel like they're conflicting, like you might feel sexually attracted to a certain group of people, but you're not romantically attracted to them. And that can cause a lot of confusion, cause a lot of conflict within yourself and with other people.
So that could cause all sorts of dating issues, all sorts of relationship issues.
Yeah, can definitely cause a lot of issues with that.
Okay.
Especially like very commonly with asexuality. People can get into not great situations where their boundaries are being crossed. I went through a lot of that. Struggled with kind of not knowing myself and pushing myself to be a lot more sexual than I actually wanted to be or actually am.
And can I ask, was that due to like expectations of what a relationship is and how you should be attracted to people and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it really was a lot of that kind of the expectation of what's normal in society, of what's the standard. And
Yeah.
a lot of that was then put on myself by myself to do a certain thing and act a certain way.
I feel like that could very easily go into the realm of toxic monogamy culture.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
that's what it reminds me of. It's like expectations that you have to be everything to everyone, or if you're not sexually attracted to someone but you're romantically attracted to them, then they're not your person. It's just, the wrong person for you or whatever. I feel like it's a lot of those types of expectations and what's considered normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some other things are, along with those kinds of feeling like something's wrong with yourself, feeling like you're not meeting society's expectation of what a relationship should be, of what attraction should be, can be a lot of guilt, shame, rejecting yourself, all of that, all of these things that we put ourselves through because we don't feel like other people or like what we think other people should be or what we should be.
Yeah. Okay. So that's massive. And I can see that that would cause a lot of misunderstandings as well if people aren't aware of those things. Like we're talking about, in relationships and in dating and stuff.
Yeah.
There was an example you gave a while ago of like, if you were to introduce yourself as an asexual lesbian to someone.
I've done this, yeah.
Okay, how did that go?
And people get a bit confused. I think it's a lot more common for people to know what asexual is now.
Yeah.
But then they get asexual lesbian in the same sentence and they go, what? Hang on, how are you both? Those two things aren't they mutually exclusive? And
Oh my gosh.
a lot of those misunderstandings can happen because I think people have a view of attraction as being what is your orientation. And a lot of the time it boils down to basing it on what's your sexual attraction.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be what people go to immediately. And that's like, people don't understand there's things other than sexual attraction, from what I've noticed.
Yeah.
And what you were saying before with like the asexual lesbian, it kind of reminds me of how people get it confused when you say I'm trans and I'm lesbian, or, that kind of thing. They go, what? They think that trans is a attraction, orientation, or, whatever. Whereas this feels a little bit different to that because it is more about the attraction side of things. I feel like it's more understandable to get it confused than trans and lesbian, for example.
I mean, I think a lot of people don't have that understanding of really queer topics in general.
Yeah.
So people confuse when you're talking about gender with talking about attraction or talking about sexuality.
Or sex, biology.
Yeah. So people don't have that kind of separation because they're not around that. They're not around people talking about it.
Yeah.
And so when they start to be around people talking about it, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But specifically for split attraction model, yeah, it can be confusing when talking about different forms of attraction and how maybe it's not all the same.
So let's dive into that. Like, what specifically is the split attraction model?
Yeah, so split attraction model essentially says that how people experience attraction can be split into different categories, and that the way people feel that attraction towards other people can be different for the different categories. So to go into some of the categories, there's obviously sexual attraction, romantic attraction, and platonic attraction. I think these.
Okay, is there obviously those? Because I think people go, sexual attraction, that's all it is.
Yeah. So I
Like,
guess
let's actually break this down.
to
What is
me,
sexual
that's
attraction?
the basics.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sexual attraction. It's a bit hard, I think, because you're asking me, an asexual who doesn't experience sexual attraction, to explain what it is. But I guess the easiest way I can get an idea of it across is it's an attraction based on a sexual nature. So it's not necessarily about desire and about what you want, but it could bring about a desire for sexual interaction with another person. And I think it's probably an easier way to understand these if you think about it in a way of desire. So the attraction causes a desire for this category. So sexual attraction brings a desire for sexual intimacy with.
Okay, cool.
Along with that, romantic attraction brings a desire for romantic connection or romantic intimacy with someone. And I think those are the kind of two most well-known, most thought about things. People talking about what they find sexually attractive or what they find romantically attractive. I think that's a common topic even outside of queer spaces. It's just not necessarily thought about as two different categories of attraction.
Well, no, I feel like often people would view romantic as a prelude to sexual.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think
not understanding that someone could have romantic attraction without having sexual attraction.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a big social kind of understanding of it and a social expectation.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of the time.
Right.
So that's sexual and romantic. And then platonic is a term a lot of people know. And it's essentially, bringing a desire for closeness to someone and what we'd call a friendship, a desire for a friendship.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of other ones that cover a lot of different aspects. So some of them are like emotional attraction, which is, bringing that desire for emotional closeness, for an emotional intimacy with another person. And a lot of the time when you're finding someone's behavior or their traits or some of these different aspects of their personality attractive, that can be emotional attraction where you're emotionally feeling connected and close to that person. Some others are aesthetic and physical, which these can get a bit confused with sexual, and I think a lot of the time, especially physical attraction gets lumped in with sexual attraction.
So how is it different?
The way I look at them is physical attraction is attraction to someone's physicality, their body shape, their facial structure. It could be a lot of different things that are, I suppose, naturally occurring on that person.
Okay.
But then aesthetic is more about how that person presents themselves. So it could be the clothes they wear, if they're dyeing their hair, the way they cut their hair, their style. I think where it blurs the lines with these two is things like muscles. If someone works out, then that might be part of how they're expressing themselves. And so it could be a combination of aesthetic and physical attraction.
Okay, so there's times where those would be merged, essentially.
Yeah. But
makes sense.
As separate things, neither of them are inherently sexual. So you can have that kind of physical attraction to someone without it being a sexual thing.
Okay.
So
I feel like there's some other things that could potentially be a bit of a merge of those, like hair color, for example. Some people say they're attracted to blondes or they're attracted to people with brunette hair or, whatever. Would that be like a physical attraction, an aesthetic, or is it kind of a mixture?
It's a bit of both, I think.
Okay.
But for an example, for physical attraction, a lot of the time you'll see men looking at pictures of other men who are bodybuilders or, professional sports players, things like that, and essentially admiring their physique. Now, to me, I would categorize that most likely as physical attraction. And, that isn't to say that this person is romantically or sexually or whatever other form of attraction attracted to those people. It doesn't mean they want a certain relationship with them. But I think there is a level of physical attraction there. And a lot of the time, I think that leads to their own desire for that or a similar kind of physicality.
Would that be physical attraction, or like how is that different to someone going, oh, I really like that person's hair, I really like that person's, I don't know, body shape or whatever, and that fueling their desire to work out or to cut their hair or do whatever? How is that different? Because I feel like it might be.
I don't think it is.
No?
I think admiring something from someone else, whether it's their clothes, whether it's their body shape, or whether it's their hair color, whatever it is, to me, I think that's attraction.
Well,
you're attracted
if I think about it in terms of like an inanimate object, for example, if I was over at someone's house and they had a really cute teapot and I was like, oh, that's a really nice teapot, I love the design of that, I want to get one of those myself, I guess that would kind of be like an aesthetic, physical attraction to this object. Like, oh, I like how this object appears.
Yeah.
I would like that
and I think
in my life.
To me, part of the whole split attraction model and thinking about things in this way is decoupling that word attraction from the desire for a relationship, or at least from the desire for a relationship of a sexual and romantic nature.
Okay, because that's where I've been hung up. On these different things.
And I think that's where a lot of people probably get hung up, is we have this idea that, attraction, that means I must want a relationship with them.
I don't want a relationship with a teapot. I just think the design's pretty.
Yeah. But, people look at a lot of different things and think, wow, that's gorgeous. Like a sunset. A lot of people love sunsets, think they're gorgeous. And I would call that an aesthetic attraction, probably. And, that's not saying that those people want a relationship with a sunset. It's just, I guess, in my mind, calling it what it is. And and decoupling that word from those preconceived ideas we have of it.
Okay. All I'm thinking of is Marge right now with potatoes. You're like, I just think they're neat.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you mentioned platonic before, and I've
Yep.
also heard you talk about queer-platonic.
Yes.
What is the difference there?
So the way to explain it is a bit weird. And personally, I don't really like putting different forms of relationships on different levels. I think any relationship can be just as fulfilling and just as meaningful as any other form.
I guess a little side note for everyone, we're very much polyamorous. So that idea of monogamy and hierarchies of relationships and stuff doesn't really vibe that well. I'm sure a lot of people watching this are probably on the same lines as that.
Yeah. But yeah, so queer platonic is kind of similar to platonic, but
So platonic being like friendship.
yes.
Okay.
And it's not, I guess, the way I would like to be able to describe it, but I can't think of a better way to describe it. But it's more about the desire for a deeper connection, for a non-sexual, non-romantic life partner, which I don't think that is what people mean when they talk about friendship. It's someone that you want to spend your life with. You want them to be a partner just as much as any other person wants someone to be their partner, just not in a sexual or romantic way.
So they're best friends. I feel like that actually might be how some people describe that.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
It could,
so you spend more time with them, you have more of a entanglement potentially.
Yeah, it would be likely to have a large amount of entanglement. And it could include things like house, family, pets, shared finances, that kind of thing where your lives are connected, your lives are entangled. You could raise kids together, just not as part of a sexual or romantic relationship.
I feel like what I'm about to say kind of has a negative connotation with it, but a lot of people, I feel, go to that queer platonic kind of relationship as they break up. So they might break up and maybe they have kids together or whatever, and they, keep the family together for the kids often. That's the very negative connotation side of it. But the structure of it essentially shifts to that.
Structurally, yes. A lot of the time, unless it's kind of gotten to the point where, the parties involved realize, oh, we're not actually sexually or romantically attracted to each other, but we still actually love each other and like each other.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I think that doesn't happen. And I think there's not really a positive emotional connection with that person.
Yeah.
It's one of the more difficult ones to explain, I think.
I mean, to me, it sounds like it's just like any other relationship. There could be issues, challenges, resentments, arguments, whatever, that could come up. And I don't know, relationships shift.
Yeah.
Relationships can shift. And I feel like a lot of the time when a relationship shifts, there is a level of judgment, resentment, this is wrong, why is this happening? Like if someone shifts out of a sexual relationship and into more of like a romantic or more platonic kind of relationship, I feel like in the very monogamous structure of all the expectations and everything, that would be viewed as like, oh, the relationship's over, and then there's all these negative connotations around it, when actually that's just a natural shift in a relationship that doesn't mean anything unless you assign a
Yeah.
meaning to it.
I think as well, a lot of the time that is due to mismatched expectations
Yeah.
of, one person feels like they are still wanting a sexual or romantic relationship with this person, but that person doesn't want that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what's important to the people,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's, and it's going to be different for every relationship.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
So we've got 3 more written on our list here.
Yeah.
Intellectual, what's that one about?
Essentially, desire for an intellectual connection or intellectual closeness with someone.
Why is the first thing I just thought of was that episode of Buffy where there's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where there's all those college guys hanging out and they're all like, oh yes,
Be bad.
thermodynamics.
Yeah, Buffy, when she's at college, episode's called Be Bad.
They very much have an intellectual relationship with one another.
Yeah. So I think it's that desire for intellectual closeness, where I guess an example would be being able to have debates or discuss literature or science or whatever it is that you intellectually want to be able to talk to someone about whatever.
Well, that's a form of attraction I have towards you. I go, oh, that's a sexy brain.
Thank you.
And that's actually, if people compliment me online, if they compliment like physical things, like, oh yeah, nice tits, like, it's not flattering at all. I don't enjoy it. It is not something that I ever look for. But if someone compliments me intellectually and they say, oh my gosh, I love how your brain works, or, the way you spoke about this and how it connects to this, I'd be like, oh, I would feel so seen.
Yeah.
And like, that is something I really value. And for me, I always say that self-reflection, not exactly self-reflection, but what's the word I'm looking for? Self-awareness is really important to me. If I was ever dating someone, self-awareness is super, super important to me. Does that come under intellectual attraction?
Mostly I think yes. For self-awareness specifically, that might be partly intellectual, partly emotional.
Yeah, okay.
Where
I can see that.
You emotionally.
Hello, lovely. If you like what you're hearing so far, and I hope you do, then you are going to love the free trainings that I have. So these trainings have helped hundreds of my own clients and my followers get into a place of empowerment, loving their authentic selves with more hope, comfort, confidence, and safety. And that is really what we're all about here. So if you're listening to this podcast, there's something for you, trans or not, whether you're interested in trauma healing or, learning to live a more empowered life, in control life, or if you're just sick of your voice getting you misgendered, then these trainings break down my core methodologies to help you with all of that and more. And it's the methodologies that I use with all of my clients. So you can register for that via the link in the description box below, and I will see you there. Mwah. Now let's get back into the episode.
Desire someone who is emotionally aware of themselves, emotionally mature.
Yeah.
Which, that can be just as emotional as it is intellectual.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Because there is a big intellectual part of it for me where I'm like, oh, okay, this person has critical thinking skills. They're able to assess their own stories and challenge themselves and all of that. But that to me leads to emotional attraction a lot of the time. Like, I'm like, oh, that's really nice. I feel emotionally safe with this person because I know that, like, for example, between us, if there's a disagreement or something that comes up, I know that you assess yourself. Like there's not been many times, but I remember one time in particular where you blamed something on me. And I was just like, is that actually a blame thing for me, or is this something else? And you flipped around like immediately. Like it took you 5 seconds and you went, yes, I don't think it's just you. There's some other things there. I'm sorry. I was like, okay, cool. That is something that makes me feel really emotionally connected, because I know that you're not just going to, blame something on me and gaslight me and shit like that, because you're going to call yourself out if you can see that you're in the wrong in some ways, or, whatever. That is something I really appreciate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that.
And a lot of these things can lead into other ones.
Yeah.
Like, I think it is common for emotional attraction to lead into romantic attraction. Personally, I feel like that's a lot more common.
Wait, which one led into what one?
Emotional attraction leading into romantic attraction.
Right.
Which would be under the label demi-romantic. But I feel a lot more people would fit under that than many people think.
Oh, so demisexual would be someone doesn't experience the sexual attraction until they have emotional attraction.
Yeah.
Which could come from romantic attraction, or it could come from, physical attraction to start, or whatever. Okay.
And I think
that's getting into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. And something like physical attraction, for a lot of people who do experience sexual attraction, I think physical attraction leads into sexual attraction a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Where something is physically attractive, and then that leads to a sexual attraction.
As opposed to when someone looks at someone with all the muscles or whatever and goes, oh, that's nice, I'd like to have those. Yeah. But it doesn't lead to sexual attraction for them. I was like, I want to snort those muscles. Why did I say that?
Snort those muscles?
I don't know. That was the first thing that came to mind, okay?
Okay, there's a couple more that we'll get through quickly.
This next one kind of worried me initially when I was looking at the wording, until you said about decoupling the meaning of it. Because familial. Okay.
So familial attraction, which is not a romantic or sexual attraction to family. It is a separate form of attraction that is based around family. So familial attraction is essentially desire for familial attachment or an emotional closeness with those that we identify as family. So I think there's this big thing within the queer community of found family.
Yeah.
And how important it is, and how supportive and helpful it is to have found family. And for a lot of queer people, the closest people to them are their found family, who they're not related by blood to, but they're closer to than the people they're related to by blood.
Yeah.
And
chosen
that
families so
attraction
important.
to that person is that familial attraction, where you want them to be family, essentially, or you see them as family.
Yeah. And I can definitely separate that in my mind for how I feel about you versus, maybe how I feel about my cousin.
Yeah.
He's very much like family to me. And I've had friends in the past as well that I very much just consider family. And it has a different feeling to it. So that one I can actually understand a bit more now.
Yeah. I used to have some friends that essentially I saw as family.
Yeah.
And, you can have this attraction to your family members. A lot of siblings or a lot of people with their parents have a really close relationship and have that kind of, familial attraction to each other where they want that.
I guess the regular wording people would use is a
Attachment.
familial bond.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the connotations that we usually associate with the word attraction.
Yeah.
Like familial attraction to me immediately went like, oh, we can't talk about that on the podcast. Like, we're not talking about incest here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not what this is. It's just that word we have certain connotations with.
Yeah.
And we're broadening the understanding of that word, which is
Yeah.
what we like to do on this podcast, broadening perspectives. So we have one more on the list.
Yeah, so sensual attraction, which is basically, it brings that desire for physical closeness, for hugging or cuddling someone, or just holding hands, things like that. Having that physical closeness to someone. A lot of the time you get that in connection with romantic attraction, but
I guess all sexual.
yeah. But a lot of the time you'll have platonic relationships where they go around holding hands or hugging a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
I've had a friend that I used to kiss and cuddle with.
Yeah. At lab, there's people that, every time we see them, give them a big hug.
Yeah.
And it's nice. That's that kind of sensual attraction that brings that desire for just wanting to be close physically. And it is, I think, common in relationships of like young girls. There's that kind of stereotype of
Oh, yeah.
cuddling and hugging and walking around holding hands and things like that.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, that's...
Which is very frowned upon for male-presenting people in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely is.
Causes a lot of emotional inhibition issues in men. But anyway, which is unfortunately very relevant for Transfem people as well through transition, because there's certain expectations and everything.
But then I think with men you do get some different forms of it where, especially with like sport, men will chest bump and I'm not really sure. I don't sport. So but
fist bump.
Men do.
That's so weird.
Like men do hug, but they do it differently so as to have it more masculine.
Oh, yeah. Instead of like a nice hug, they go like...
But that could be...
Oh, that hurt.
That could be that desire for...
Yeah.
Like physical closeness, for that sensual attraction.
Manly physical closeness.
Yeah. Just got to make sure it smells like smoke and gunpowder.
Oh my gosh. Oh, don't. Okay, so are there any other categories?
I think there's hundreds.
Okay.
It's really...
So it depends how much in the details you want to go with it.
I think that broadly covers everything.
Okay.
But, there's... How do you connect to others? What are the different ways we connect to others? It's likely that there's some kind of attraction driving that. Where...
Okay.
Why do I want to connect with this person? Why do I want to be near this person? It could be any number of things.
Yeah.
And any of those could have their own name and their own distinct form of attraction.
Yeah.
But I think these are the kind of main ones, at least that I think about when connecting with people and talking to people.
Okay. Now, for some people... Like some people say that the split attraction model just overcomplicates attraction. And I could see that. Like if there's all of these categories, do we really need to dive into all of them? I feel like the people who would say that it overcomplicates it would never have to have questioned it.
Yeah.
Would not had issues that would cause them to question it. I mean, it's the same thing as gender. If you don't have any reason to suspect you might be trans, if there's no discomfort or there's no issues or challenges, then you're probably not going to question it. I'm guessing it's the same kind of thing for this.
Yeah, I think to the people who look at it and go, wow, no, that's way too complicated, doesn't need to be like that, I would say attraction is complicated.
Well, yeah,
Attraction
humans are
itself is
complicated.
complicated. The way we feel attraction,
Mm-hmm.
the way we gain attraction, the way we lose attraction, it's a really complicated process.
Mm.
And a lot of this is just trying to give language to it so that we can better communicate how we're feeling and how we're connecting with people. And
Me no want complexity, no emotion. Oh no, I'm just making fun of people now. I'm sorry.
just a little bit.
But I guess that all kind of comes down to, if you don't need to question it and you're just kind of living your life on the default and it works for you, then there's no problem. There's probably no need to dive into it. But if you're someone who doesn't fit that, who is, I guess, different from the norm in terms of what the expectations are of the norm, then it would be a really good thing to dive into, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't need to know, great. You don't need to know. You don't think it affects you.
If I understand correctly, I've heard the split attraction model was developed initially by, was it asexual people?
Yeah, so it kind of has its roots in both asexual and aromantic communities. And I think that's because a lot of asexual people, a lot of aromantic people still experience other forms of attraction. And not having the language to explain that, to talk about that, to explore it, can be difficult.
Yeah.
And can be really isolating and alienating.
So they've probably felt like there's something wrong with them. Maybe they've been in a relationship and they're like, I'm not sexually attracted to this person. What's wrong with me? Or I should be, or blah, blah, blah. And so that's initially what's caused the, I guess, dive into this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think also just the idea that, I'm asexual, I don't experience sexual attraction, but I do still like people. I do still want to be in relationships with people. What language can I use to explain that?
Yeah.
To describe that? And that's kind of where this has come from, that desire for how do I explain and how do I describe my identity to other people? And in the asexual and aromantic community, a lot of people there get it. They, I think, understand this generally a lot faster than a lot of other people do, because they've probably spent a lot more time thinking about it themselves without necessarily having that language.
Well, they've literally experienced more of a disconnect than the general populace have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they experience the duality, or, more than duality, but they experience that difference between one form of attraction being there and one form of attraction not.
Yeah. So is the split attraction model only for asexual people?
No, definitely not. I think it's definitely come from, asexual, aromantic communities, and really helps people there a lot of the time. But, I've seen people who are homosexual but hetero-romantic. And so, as an example, a guy who is sexually attracted to other men, but they're not romantically attracted to them, and they're romantically attracted to women, but not sexually.
Yeah.
And having this language of even just being able to say that and being able to split up and say, well, actually, I've got different forms of attraction that don't work in the same way, can be a massive deal. for, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah. So it allows them to live their lives in a way that feels most authentic to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. I feel like that goes into all of the realm of like, you know, genital preferences and stuff like that. I think when we understand the split attraction model, it can bring greater empathy and awareness to, you know, or self-acceptance as well. If I'm thinking about myself, like self-acceptance for my own attraction to other people, like understanding this, I have an understanding that sexually I probably, or physically, I find men most attractive or masc presenting people, but emotionally and I guess like romantically, I'm more attracted to women or femme presenting people. Intellectuals just kind of across the board. I like, but there's forms of attraction where I'm attracted to masc, femme, or envy, or you know anything, and then there's other forms where I'm like, well, I'm really only attracted to men in that way, or really only attracted to women in that way, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that for me has really helped my own understanding and not making it wrong, because that's been the case for me, like in the past, where you know an ex-partner of mine was a cis woman and I wasn't necessarily sexually attracted, but I was romantically attracted, I was emotionally attracted, and I was physically and aesthetically attracted and intellectually. There's a whole bunch of attraction that I had for her, but she felt like she was dating a straight girl, essentially. And she had some major like insecurities around that. And for me, it was very strange because I'm like, but I have all these other attractions to you. And I'm like, it's still a really important relationship to me. But for her, that sexual attraction was really important. And knowing that I didn't necessarily have that towards her was too much for her.
Yeah. I think that's another important thing of understanding the split attraction model is you can look at yourself and not just look at, well, this is how my attraction works to others, but also look at, well, this is what I want from a relationship, from whatever, you know, from a relationship, or, you know, I want sexual attraction to be there. I want my partner to be sexually attracted to me. Knowing that can help you
can make informed decisions
find relationships that are going to fit.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know that, it can put blame on yourself or put blame on the other person, when really that it's no one's fault.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, one of the ways in which people are different from each other, and
yeah, it's just a natural variation in human attraction.
But going into something knowing, well, this is what I want from a relationship, not just, you know, like, oh, I want them to be working, I want them to be educated, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But also, I want them to be attracted to me in this way.
Yeah.
Because that's important to me.
Designer relationships.
Yeah.
I feel like this really lends itself to polyamory, which is probably something to dive into in a future episode.
Definitely, yeah.
Because, yeah, it's totally natural to want different forms of attraction with different people.
Yeah.
Or different forms of connection with different people, I mean.
Yeah, and I think that's often looked at and talked about in polyamory and in polyamorous circles.
So they're actually probably the other subgroup of people that would really understand this.
Yeah, probably.
It just so happens to be a lot of overlap.
Yeah, it's also something that can be applied to anyone, really. Just looking at, well, here's the different things that I want to have and I want to feel people attracted to me for.
Yeah.
And where do I want those to come from?
Yeah.
Do you want a partner who is sexually, romantically, and emotionally attracted to you? Or do you want a partner who's, romantically and intellectually attracted to you? And, where can you get these different things that you want?
Yeah.
Whether it's partner, family, friends, everyone has needs. And knowing yourself, knowing what you want, what you need, and how you feel things and how you connect to others can really help form your life into having the relationships that are important and best for you.
This is such an important discussion. And as you were talking just then, I was thinking about all the studies that have been done around happiness and like eudaimonic happiness versus like all the different forms of happiness. And this, like, one of the main things that is identified for human happiness is deep emotional connections. And I think this is so important because when you understand these different forms of attraction, you can build your life in a way that builds the types of relationships you want in your life, which has a massive impact as to how happy you feel.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So where can people, like, how might someone begin to explore this, to explore the different forms of attraction, what fits them?
A lot of it is introspection and looking at yourself and asking.
Listening to this episode.
Yeah. Asking yourself, what are you attracted to? What kind of attraction is it? And, really deeply exploring that.
Yeah. Okay. And if someone wanted guidance around this, guidance to explore it, where could they get some support around that?
So I have run some attraction clarity calls, which is, for people who want some more clarity on their attraction, want some help in exploring it and figuring out what it is that they're feeling. And, I'm doing those to really try and help people introspect and guide them to see where those things sit for them.
Yeah. Okay, so building a bit more understanding, a bit more introspection, a bit more acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I think you were going to put in the show notes a link for those.
Yeah. I can put that in. So I'm going to put a booking link in the show notes if someone wants to have one of those calls with you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. Awesome. I have a final question for you. This is something I usually ask to people I'm interviewing. This hasn't exactly been an interview, but if you were to go back to your younger or closeted trans self and give them 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
Well, do you know what I'm like? This is my autistic brain going, just give them the information and let them sort it out. So
What information?
literally just, you're autistic, you're ADHD, you're non-binary, you're a lesbian, you're asexual, all these different things, and it is okay to be like that. It is okay to take time to explore that and figure it out. And it's okay to be different, but there's always people who understand you and are going to take the time to understand you and accept you.
Beautiful. Gosh, I feel like that might blow the toaster a little bit. If you go back and go, you're a lesbian, I'm like, what? I didn't even know I was not a guy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that'd be funny. So this has been a really freaking awesome discussion, and I feel so much more clarity around this for myself. And this is something that, like, I've learned bits and pieces of here and there and, from you and all of that. But this has really shown me the importance of it and how it can actually impact people. So I've absolutely loved this discussion. Just to summarize some of those key takeaways. So there's a bunch of different forms of attraction, and understanding them can help you understand your own identity. So to summarize, there's, sexual, romantic, platonic, emotional, aesthetic, physical, queer-platonic, intellectual, familial, sensual. That's probably the top 10 that we would look into. You can feel different forms of those attractions to different kinds of people. So you might be sexually attracted to only men and romantically attracted only to women, for example. And also the split attraction model might feel overcomplicated for those who don't need it, and it can be super affirming to those who relate to it. So I have loved this discussion. Thank you for enlightening me and the Trans Boss podcast viewers, Winter.
It's okay. Thank you for sitting down and doing it with me. It's fun.
You love talking about this stuff, don't you?
I do. I think it's really fun, fascinating thing to talk about, and especially to hear what other people want to know about it.
Yeah.
And other people's thoughts on it.
All right. Lovely. I guess that's why you do the attraction clarity calls, right?
Yep.
You smile. You love it. Okay. Well, that is all from us for this one. And thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Trans Boss podcast. If you support the Trans Boss movement, it would help immensely if you could leave a review on your favorite podcasting app, follow us, and share your biggest takeaway from this episode on social media. Don't forget to tag me at jasmine.vine.e on Instagram because I would love to see it. Now get out there, do the things, and take the next step into that empowered life you deserve. See you next time.